January the 30th, 2014, it's Tropical Weather Bulletin number 75, and as of midnight UTC on this day, we currently have one storm active, Cyclone 11P, which is headed towards Queensland, Australia. We also have two invests out there right now, 91S, which is moving inland over Mozambique now in Africa, and Invest 92W in the Western Pacific in between Palau and Guam, which could develop into our next system up there. And this is it right now. You can see the satellite imagery over the past few frames, the past few hours that would be. The storm's headed slowly towards the Philippines, and it's likely to cross over those islands in the next few days. That's what the models are hinting at the moment. We'll see more on that a little bit later. The system itself looking somewhat potent, fairly large as well. This is the Eastern Pacific right now, still not much going on here as you would expect for this time of year, but you never know, there might just be the odd cyclone in the central part of the ocean that just pops up. A little bit of cloudiness going on east of Hawaii, all the way up towards California across the ocean there, but nothing of a tropical nature. The Southern Pacific Ocean, 11P, there it is right now, moving very close to Australia. A lot of the clouds associated with the storm are over land right now. It's spiral band extending to the south of the storm. Half of that is over Queensland right now, so there'll be some rain falling there. And in the Indian Ocean, things looking fairly quiet. A little bit of disturbances here and there, a little bit of cloud towards the southern part of Madagascar, and the Invest 91S, which is just hovering along the coast of Mozambique right now in Africa. That's the current situation there. The sea surface temperatures right now, first of all looking at the Southern Pacific, where we may see another storm soon. Warm sea surface temperatures, especially towards the left hand side there, just near Samoa that is, near Fiji as well. Warm waters here, 30 degrees and possibly above that around those islands. Moving further towards the west, towards Australia, you can see very warm waters, in particular off towards the north of Vanuatu, over 30 degree waters there. Where the current storm is 11P, temperatures are around 28 degrees Celsius, certainly warm enough to sustain tropical cyclone development. So no real cause for concern there in terms of the storm, but along the whole northern coast of Australia, as always for this time of year, very warm. Same too for the Indian Ocean, the southern half of it at least. 30 degree waters here and there in the central part of the Indian Ocean. Where that storm is right now, the Invest 91S, temperatures currently around 28 degrees Celsius, but since the storm's mostly over land now, it's fairly irrelevant. So looking at our current system, the only one we have at the moment, Cyclone 11P, currently up to winds of 50 miles per hour, just gone up right now, with a pressure of 989 millibars. Its current position is 17.6 degrees south, 148.5 degrees east. The storm is expected to move towards the southwest, making landfall in Queensland, Australia in the next 24 hours, or possibly less than that, maybe around 12 to 18 hours more likely, and then the storm will move inland and weaken to a tropical depression, possibly surviving another day or two before being completely dissipated well inland. So along the coast of Australia there, that particular region, that part of Queensland, we could be seeing some heavy rain and possibly some gusty winds at over 50 miles per hour. If the storm does decide to intensify a little bit over those warm waters, we could possibly see a 60 mile per hour landfall. But as it is, 50 miles per hour on this system, we have tropical cyclone warnings in effect from Cardwell all the way down to St Lawrence, so that's quite a sizable stretch of coastline, but still not too much of a real threat in terms of wind speeds. That's not going to be the main concern. We might see some heavy rain which could lead to local flooding, but the storm will probably be there and gone in the next day or two, dissipated inland by then. So looking at the shear tendency maps, this is the Indian Ocean first of all. You can see the darker areas are the areas which are most favourable for cyclone development. So where that invest is right now, towards the bottom left hand side, shear is quite high, around 20 to 30 knots at least. So the storm is having a little bit of trouble. Near Madagascar, just towards the east of there, there's a very low area of very low shear, where we could possibly see some development if there is actually a system there. Looking towards Australia, you can see the tropical cyclone icon is 11P, under some very low shear conditions at the moment, so that's looking really good and favourable for the storm, at least until it makes landfall in Australia. There's some higher amounts of shear further south, which are likely to rip the storm apart once it moves inland. Obviously it won't need much doing, because it won't be much of a storm, and it will be weakening rather quickly inland once it gets there. Looking at the Western Pacific as well, the invest, which would be between Palau and Guam, which is just east of the Philippines by a little way. Shear amounts are low to moderate at the moment, 10 to 20 knots of shear, which isn't too much of a detriment for the storm, at least at the moment. But as it moves towards the west, you can see that shear is much higher and will provide a bit more of a challenge for the storm over the next few days. We're not likely to see a strong one, I can say that much. And this is what the water vapour imagery looks like at the moment. The invest in question is on the left hand side of the screen there, all that moisture down towards the south, dry air, a massive swathe of it towards its north and west over the Philippines. So if dry air does intrude into the storm, it will obviously have even more difficulty intensifying over the next few days, coupled with shear, but sea surface temperatures of course on its side. So this is the current Cyclone 11P, moving towards the southwest at the moment. Trying to get its act together. You can see the core of the storm moving towards the southwest and possibly affecting the coast already of Australia, but you see the spiral band off to its south already affecting that area to the south of the storm centre at the moment. But you'll see the areas to the west of the storm along that eastern coast of northern Queensland will see some effects of the storm coming up very soon. We could be seeing some winds of 50 to 60 miles per hour, gusting maybe higher than that in the next 12 to 24 hours, but I imagine that in around 24 to 36 hours the storm will be finishing off and winds will go down considerably and rain will probably decrease similarly as well. Looking at the models right now, the CMC, this is the Western Pacific. You can see that area towards the south moving over the Philippines. That's the current invest, moving across the Visayas region and then out into the South China Sea, where it will move towards the south and probably dissipate. The GFS model is, as always, less keen on development. Looks like a weak system according to the GFS as it moves towards the west-northwest, striking possibly on the northern tip of Mindanao before moving through the Visayas region. The CMC model for the southern hemisphere, you can see the 11P striking Australia very early on in the loop, and then a few new systems forming out of that as well. Towards the northwest of Australia, near the Northern Territories, we'll see a storm possibly affecting that area, and two more systems forming out in the Coral Sea as well by the looks of things. Maybe even a third one near Papua New Guinea, but it's all looking rather exciting over the next few days over there. But let's just focus on the current storm 11P, which is likely to make landfall very soon, but definitely could be seeing another storm or two in the next 2 or 3 days or more. Looking at the overall predicted season scores then, for January the 30th, 2014, Monsoon is in first place with 0 points. That's the minimum you can ever have. That Blue Pit in second with 24, Hurricane Ruby in third with 34. These scores are very speculative at the moment because it's extremely early on in the year. So I wouldn't take much into, I wouldn't put much value into any of these current scores, because of course there's a long way to go until the end of the year and the actual totals come through. You can submit your own totals on the website force13.com/interactive. Just click the Predict the Season 2014 link. On this day, on January the 30th, nothing happened in the Northern Hemisphere, but in 2011 Cyclone Yasi entered the Australian region as it continued to intensify, and Queensland of course was preparing for that storm. Obviously a much more stronger storm than what Australia is currently bracing for at the moment, but still 11P is something at least to prepare for, not something to go out in. And that's the storm in question, Yasi, towards the bottom right of the screen there. You can track any storm that forms at the website. force13.com/stormtracking.html is the main page for all the storm tracking information. There you're presented with the overview map, which shows where all the storms are in the world, including any invests and any new systems that form, and extratropical cyclones as well, if it's deemed necessary to continue tracking them after they've turned post-tropical. And you can go on there and you can go into each individual basin to see more information on each storm, including 11P right now, where you can see detailed warning information as it updates. You can also visit our social websites and our mediums, YouTube, Facebook and Twitter. Just search Force 13 on any of those and you should find us fairly easily enough. Do interact if you wish. And looking at the current scoreboard on the Western Pacific there, Ling Ling of course formed. The next storm name would be Kajiki, and that could be the case from 92W. We'll obviously see what happens over the next few days. Tropical cyclone formation alert has been issued on that system as well, so it's looking fairly likely at the moment. If you'd like to send a direct message to myself, you can do so by sending an email to force13@hotmail.co.uk, or you can send a message through the contact form. That's pretty much the same thing on the Force 13 website, or via YouTube PM, or by any of the other social mediums as well, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. That's all for this bulletin. The next one, number 76, will be coming up as soon as possible, possibly not tomorrow, depending on what the current system does, 11p, but if necessary it will be midnight on the 31st of January, but probably later. I really don't know. Can you tell?